Hello, and welcome to my review of Aquaman. So, Aquaman is the newest in the DC universe. It's a follow-up to Justice League and Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. And those movies were very dark. They had lots of muted colors. There was very little humor. Aquaman is basically the opposite of that. It's very bright, it's very colorful, it's got a lot of action, and there's a lot of humor. Some of it hits and some of it doesn't. Overall, the plot is Aquaman, well actually, let's start from the beginning. So Aquaman starts with him basically telling the story through narration of how his mom and his dad met. And from the trailer you already know that Nicole Kidman is his mom, the Queen of Atlantis. She washes up at the lighthouse, meets Aquaman's dad, and they have a baby, and it's Aquaman. And he has all the powers of Atlantis, even some that most of them don't know about or haven't seen. That would be the ability to talk to the fish, which is an ability that Aquaman has had for a long time in the lore. But I don't know, like I don't follow Aquaman comics. I haven't for a very long time. So I don't know all the powers that he's supposed to have. But I do know that the powers they give him in this movie are a lot. Like he's basically Superman, but without like laser vision and freeze breath and the ability to fly. But he's invulnerable to bullets and blades, and he explodes a couple of times and seems okay with it. So overall, that part of it, and even when he's under the water, he swims super fast, so it's essentially like under the water he can fly. So he's pretty powerful and he's pretty badass, but he can be injured by Atlantean steel. That's one thing that comes up later in the movie. They tell that in probably the first 20 minutes or so, maybe 15, they go over an abridged origin. Because we already know Aquaman, he was already introduced. They don't need to do an origin story again. And there's not really an origin story where he figures out his powers. He knows about them from the beginning. So that's how he's raised, is to know about his powers and to know about Atlanta. Willem Dafoe plays a character who is tasked with training him. He's an Atlantean, but he comes to train Aquaman on how to fight and the Atlantean way of doing things. But that's really all condensed into the first 15-20 minutes. And most of it you've already seen in the trailer. And then they go into more of how Black Manta started. So you have the origin, I guess, of Black Manta, which happens during a fight with Aquaman, and you can see his point of view, Black Manta's point of view of why he would become a supervillain after this. Like, he already started as not a good guy, but after what happened with Aquaman, you can see why he would want revenge and why he would want to get a hold of that Atlantean steel that can injure Aquaman, and why he would do certain things to make that happen. And then they show Orn. Orn is the king of Atlantis. He was born from Aquaman's mom, but a different dad. And so they're half brothers, and Orn has taken over the kingdom of Atlantis. But he also wants war with the surface. Only he has certain rules he has to follow before he can actually start a war. And so you can kind of see a little bit of that in the trailer also, with the big tidal wave that basically attacks Aquaman. And Mera, who is played by Amber Heard, is the one who's trying to get Aquaman to fight for them and to save them from Orm's bad leadership. But also Willem Dafoe's character, who at this point is like the second in command, is trying to get Aquaman to help also. So that's kind of near the beginning, and then after that you get into Aquaman going on this trek with Mera to find this trident that he needs to be a leader, and Orm trying to fight the surface, and Black Manta trying to come up with the powers he needs to fight Aquaman. There is some part in there where there's not a lot of good transitions in between the different stories, and even in some scenes, like some scenes just end abruptly without transitioning into the next scene, and that becomes apparent in a few times. You'll kind of be like, well, what happened to those guys? Like, they didn't explain that, they just went on to the next scene. There will be a few times when that happens. The special effects are great, except in the beginning, like I was telling you about how his mom and dad met. Well, his mom is played by Nicole Kidman. His dad is played by the guy that played Boba Fett's dad in Attack of the Clones. And there's some de-aging makeup that goes on that isn't very good to show them as younger people. And that is a bit distracting in the beginning of the movie. But after that, the special effects are really good. Like, the underwater effects are great. It's very colorful, it's very bright, you see everything that's happening. Even the fight scenes, you see everything that's happening. They're wide shots, they're not close, they're not quick cuts. Sometimes you can tell, okay, that's a stunt person, that's not. But for the most part, they're very good directed scenes. But the underwater world is the big star of the movie, basically, because they created an entire world. Like, this is very good world building. These are things you haven't seen before. You might have seen something similar, but like the ships, the creatures they have, the Atlanta itself, it's very good looking. It's very well done. It's very original looking, and it's a great world that you do want to see more of in other movies, and then hopefully there will be. This is a DC movie, and it's at the end of the reign of the previous people, so we don't know what's happening or if there's going to be recasting of certain roles. I hope they stay with the same roles, because the casting isn't the issue. It's the dark muted colors, the dark tone, and what happened with Justice League with the two directors. It was very muddled, and that wasn't the cast's fault. So, and in this case with Aquaman, Jason Momoa does a great job as Aquaman. Like, they turned him, when I first heard of Aquaman, I was thinking of the blue-eyed blonde guy that I grew up reading about. But turning him into the Jason Momoa character is great. Like, it really fits the cinematic universe that they're trying to build. The other guy wouldn't have. But also, like I said, the powers that they give him, like the invulnerable to bullets and not being able to be stabbed, like, that makes him quite a badass in these movies, and I hope there's more. The other characters, like Dolph Lundgren has a part in this that was definitely larger than I thought it would be. I thought it would be a glorified cameo, but it's a pretty large part, and he does good. Willem Dafoe is great. Amber Heard, her comedic timing seemed a little bit off in some places, that so the jokes fell a little flat, but other than that, she was pretty good. Jason Momoa is great as Aquaman. It was a great casting decision. He does, especially the action. Like, he's always been good in the shows that he's been on. He's always been good in action, and in this case, it's the same. One of the things with the fight scenes that happen underwater is, because they're underwater, they can be very unique with the kind of moves and fighting styles that they show, which I thought was a good touch. It wasn't just like people throwing punches underwater. They actually used the water and their powers, and it was very entertaining to watch. Patrick Wilson plays the bad guy. He's been in a lot of James Wan's movies, so they work well together, and he does play a really good bad guy. He's the half brother, so even though they're related, he has his issues with Aquaman, and he wants the power, and he was raised mostly by his father, who saw the worlds a different way. He saw them as two different worlds fighting each other, the surface and under the water. So that's why he is different than Aquaman. But overall, like, it's a really good show. There's definitely some things that you would say are issues. The scenes, like I said, the scenes not transitioning very well. The storytelling got a little muddled in places. There's one part where Amber Heard and her dad, played by Dolph Lundgren, have like a backstory going on, but they kind of just ignore it for a while and it doesn't show up again. And overall, there's just what it really feels like is that it was meant to be two movies and they combined it into one. Because you could have had one movie with just Patrick Wilson's character as the bad guy, and you could have had a separate movie with Black Manta as the bad guy. But in this case, they do it both in one, and it's a 2.5-hour movie, but it does feel rushed, which is odd. And the pacing, in some cases, it's not slow. It's just uneven. But other than that, it's a really good movie. Definitely worth watching. Definitely worth watching in theaters. The special effects alone are worth that. I'll be buying it on Blu-ray when it comes out. I've got the 70-inch screen. I'll watch it again with the full HD and see how that goes. I think it'll be great to watch. This is probably the first DC movie, well, other than Wonder Woman, that I've been looking forward to buying on Blu-ray. So that should tell you where it ranks. And I'm hoping that with Wonder Woman and with Aquaman being the most successful of the DC movies, that they follow this trend with the colorful, bright colors and the humorous tone. And I hope that they follow this trend and keep making good DC movies. But like I said, I think it might be past the point because they're already talking about recasting some characters, but we'll see. So that's Aquaman, starring Jason Momoa, directed by James Wan. Go see it. It's very good. I give it a 7 out of 10. It probably would have gotten an 8 out of 10 if some of the storytelling was a little tighter and more concise. But overall, it's a good movie, worth watching in theaters, worth buying on Blu-ray when it comes out. So thank you.